Hey guys, I got a butchering video here. I'm going to be doing a hind quarter and one of the back straps of the deer that we were cutting. Show you a little more in depth on kind of what it looks like and some of the cuts to make, and then how we cut our jerky. So give me just a second, let me grab it and we'll get it out here. Disclaimer, I'm going to wear some nitrile gloves. Normally I don't wear them, but I got some cuts like all over my hands from different construction projects and a couple knife cuts and stuff. So this meat has salt in it. So when you're touching the meat, whether you're butchering or quartering or whatnot, and you got cuts on your hands, it will burn. So I'm gonna wear some gloves just to take care of that. Here's our hind quarter. This is from a mature doe that we shot, or that I shot. It's been at least 4 or 5 days. And the only thing I'm gonna use, guys, is my kitchen knife. And normally I'd have my K-bar or something out here. You don't have to have some special knife to do any of this. This has already been washed, so I got all the hair, most of the hair and stuff off of it. So this is all gonna be grind meat. So we eat a lot of ground here. We haven't bought beef for several years, because it's all been deer, or we did have one of our own cows butchered, beef cows. So we don't buy, this is all going to be grind on the hind quarter. You don't have to do that though. There's a few cuts you can make on here to have roasts or whatever. You can see this thing weighs probably close to 12 pound, 15 pound probably. We're going to cut some of that off, but we'll show you how we do it. First thing is all of this big, you can see, kind of see some of this, I don't know, gnarly stuff here. This is fat. There's basically a big chunk of fat here, and then the whole leg has a protective layer of sinew or silver skin. You may have heard it called before. Let me tell you just like a dad nugget here. You do not have to cut that off. A lot of hunters will tell you do, a lot of butchers will tell you do, but I'm telling you guys, for years, we've done all of our own butchering. For years, I would cut all this. I'd take hours taking all this silver skin off of here. And then one time, I was in a big hurry and I just didn't have time to do it. So I butchered the deer, same as I always would, except I left most of this sinew on here. And when I did it, didn't taste any difference at all. So you can spend time trimming it all off if you want, but to me it was a waste of time. We grind this up, get used in chili, tacos, meatloaf, that kind of stuff, all of that, and we don't taste any difference with some of this. So do what you want to do, but that's how we do. So, all right, let me get started on this thing. I have sharpened my kitchen knife here, and these little cheap little knives for the kitchen get super sharp. They're really cheap steel. We got a scrap bucket and actually make that one the scrap bucket. We're gonna probably have less scrap than good meat, so. This is all just right here, just large chunks of fat, which if any of you have ever had a bad experience with deer meat, meaning you're like, oh, I don't like deer meat, you have probably eaten meat that has been cut wrong, meaning a bunch of this fat was left on. Deer fat doesn't taste good. It's not like a steak where, you know, for you folks who like fatty steaks and beef steaks and stuff, it's not like that, or at least it's not like that to me and most of the folks I've talked to. They say they don't like deer meat. Could have gotten a bunch of fat in there, or maybe you got an old grandpa buck. You know, that old tough buck meat sometimes can turn people off. This is a doe. She was probably 2, maybe 3 years old. Pretty big doe, and does taste better than bucks in my opinion. And that is just an opinion. So if you're one of them guys and hunters who disagree, good for you. You know, we do what we do, you do what you do. So We do hunt here in the Reisner house to fill the freezer. So we'll take a buck any day of the week, but those are just fine. So anyway, I'm just gonna trim. These are just thick, like you can feel, so you can kind of see here. Let me lay this here, like this solid white, thick fat compared to, oh. So you can see the fat that you need to cut off is thick, it's white, it's hard. This is the sinew or silver skin. I'm going to trim a piece of it off just to kind of show you the difference. You can kind of pull it up here and get your tip of your knife under it. It trims off, very thin. There's a difference. So we trim off the big thick pieces. Just about it. I might find a piece here or there as I go through it, so nothing major. But, so when you start trimming this thing, you'll notice, you know, just like a person, a deer has muscle groups, and they can be, you can see, you kind of see them running together here. You've got some tendon and things that run between them. Kind of a bigger one here. A lot of the leg roast, when people make a roast, they cut it off of this part back here. So I'm trying to swing it around so you can see it the best there. Let me give you a better view, hold on. Tilt you down here. There, that's a little better, huh? So what we're gonna do is cut right along that muscle group there, and you can even get your finger in under it. See that they separate. All the way down in there, okay? Now let loose once you kind of get some of this silver skin cut, if that's what you're trying to do. Okay. So you can see this big boy right here. Lay that thing, pretty much lay it open right there. And there's another one. So we got a little bit of fat in here that I'll trim off. Like I said, just for taste. That's that white, thick, chunky stuff. By the way, at the butcher, I don't know everybody's personal butcher or anything like that, but you know, they've got, I don't know how many deer to do a day when you're taking them in. So I'm sure they do a great job. I've never taken a deer to the butcher. We've always done it ourselves. Every deer we've shot, we have cleaned, gutted, quartered, and butchered here at the house. So I've never taken one to the butcher. I can imagine they do a fine job, but you don't have to. You can do it all yourself. So you can kind of see the different muscle groups in here on this one. You go to, there's a bone, of course, that runs through here, and it's the leg bone. You can see kind of the spot there, the ball. That's bone. Okay, so what I'm doing is like I'm running my knife literally like right beside, I'm hitting bone right there. Just running my knife kind of right beside all that and letting the knife do the work around the bone to just release this muscle from the bone. Okay. And then there's a joint here. This is, you know, if it had a knee, that's where it would be. Sorry, my cutting board's kind of sliding all around here. I really need a bigger one, but that's what we got, so we're using it. Okay. Anyway, cut this guy in here. Cut him loose. Okay, here's what you're left with. Here's what's left on the bone. After you cut it off the leg bone, not much there. As you can see, that'll go to the dogs. This is what was on the lower hind quarter or the calf area. And this big chunk here is basically the thigh meat that we're gonna cut into grinding. So, let's get this guy up here. All we do for this, you can see I still got a lot of this silver skin on here. That's okay, I'm telling you, it doesn't make a big difference. If you know you're gonna make like burgers or something like that, okay, and you're not, especially if you're not used to eating deer meat, you don't really recognize the taste of it, then okay, trim it off of there, you know. But if you're putting this in a lot of seasoned food, then that just doesn't taste like you think it does, especially on a doe or a young buck maybe. We don't make a lot of burgers, but here's the thing. I talked to a young lady once, she grew up in Missouri, and even she asked, when I told her about butchering deer and stuff, even she asked, why do you guys trim it so much? You know, me and she was talking about my family, and I said, oh, because the silver skin really changes the taste of the meat. And she said, well, yeah, but we like that taste. That's what makes that meat different from other meat. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. You know, we eat chicken, we eat cow, we eat pork, and they taste differently. And so, some people, they like the taste of that wild taste, you know what I mean? But most people don't. We're not used to that. A lot of people, we're used to store-bought, you know, beef that's super marbly, got that good taste and fat in it, stuff like that. And deer just doesn't. I mean, you saw this is what I cut off of it, basically, this hind quarter, and this is excessive. I was just telling my kids, because I was kind of trimming that up off video. I was telling them I'm probably trimming this more than normal, you know, and they're like, yeah, because they're normally helping with the whole thing. But if you like the taste, leave it on. That's really better if you can get to like the taste of it the way it is, because then you've got even less work to do. So just give me a second here. I'm just cutting this into strips, basically. Ultimately, it'll end up being chunks for my grinder. On the video earlier, I think I highlighted the Gander Mountain grinder that I use. It's cheap. It was a gift, actually, so it's free to me, but they are cheap, but they don't do large pieces. So I'll show you the size in just a second. If you've got loose hanging stuff like this, obviously that's okay to trim off. And if I can say one thing about trimming this will, if you don't trim it, it can get your grinder blade kind of clogged up, I would say. So I might take something like this, even though this is silver skin. I might take something like this. Yeah, you can see I can pick it up by that and just trim that off of there because it's quick and easy. So I wouldn't intentionally go, you know, knifing a bunch of that off of there if it were me, but you can. Got a big chunk there. Just kind of get that off of there. Okay. Pretty much got ready for the grinder after cut this into chunks. So this is pretty much what we do with my little kids. So I don't know how you guys do it, but I start taking my kids hunting when they turn 5. On their 5th birthday, they get their first pocket knife. I did have one that we waited until she was 6, just because she was a little, she wasn't ready for one at 5, right? So you be the judge of that with your kids. But I start taking them hunting with me when they turn 5. They sit in the stand, and they learn how to sit quiet. They don't shoot a gun, they don't, shoot a bow or anything like that. They just sit there. They gotta learn to sit quietly, to look around, to hear noises, and what noises to, not care about squirrels and stuff like that if you're deer hunting. But they get used to it, and they probably do that for a couple of years, and they might be able to hunt a little bit after that, like, because we start them shooting pretty early, safely and whatnot, but a lot of times the biggest holdup for them actually hunting by themselves or shooting a gun by themselves with me supervising is their arms. A lot of times their arms just aren't long enough to hold even a youth model gun, 6, 7, maybe even 8 years old. Their arms just aren't long enough to hold it. So, play that by ear. I'm a believer that if you train your kids right in gun safety, and you show them how to be safe, and you raise them up around this kind of stuff, then it's common to them, And so that's what we try to do. Praise God, we've never had, a big accident. We've had cuts here or there or something, but that happens, frequently, especially when you're in a hurry. So to the Lord be the glory, and we'll keep trusting Him and doing things the way we know how to do them. So anyway, so these are about the size that I'm going to cut these in. It's maybe a 1.5 by 1.5. It's not exact by any means. We get close as long as it'll shove down in there. The grinder will eat it. So I'm going to chunk this up, and I'll just chunk it real quick here. If you get a big piece, obviously you can just cut it in half. This is a good thing for the little kids to do, because even though they don't start shooting at 5, they do start butchering when they get that knife. Excuse me. So what the older kids will do, you saw in the video, is they'll take a leg like this, trim it off the bone, and then they will cut it into strips, and then they'll throw it to one of the little kids. And then the little kids, their only job is to cut it into chunks. I mean, this is as easy as it gets, but that really teaches them knife control, teaches them to keep their hands out of the way, and it lets them be a part, and getting in here and feeling this meat. You're touching it, you're messing with it, you're seeing some of the blood, I'll tell you now, if you're gonna eat deer meat, kill your own deer, and butcher your own deer, gut your own deer, and all that. If you've never done that, if you've got a strong stomach, praise God. But there's still kind of a step to get over. A lot of people think, well, I'll do that if I ever have to. Like if, the world goes crazy, which kind of is, and you have to hunt, and, my family and I, of course, believe that one day that people will be forced to either take the mark of the beast, or they won't be able to buy, sell, trade, whatever. Then the world system, obviously we're not doing that because we love Jesus. But you may have to hunt. You may have to get your own food and know what to do with it. And trust me, we're self-taught. We didn't know what to do with it when we first got into this. YouTube, let's see, when I started hunting, that was, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, something like that. YouTube was certainly a thing, but it wasn't like it is now. You could find hunting videos and stuff, I'm sure, but we still had to learn by doing it. I had one buddy who did show me, he didn't show me how, he gutted a deer for me. The first deer I got was a road hit deer. And I took it to his house and said, hey man, what do I do with this? And he took the guts out in the middle of the night. And so that was and then I had another buddy who butchered his own deer. He came over and showed us what he does, and we did it ourselves from there on out. And we figured it out, you know. Wrong bucket, don't throw your scrap in the good bucket. We figured it out from there on out. So my point is, get in there, get your hands dirty, learn how to do it, and you don't have to do it the same as everybody else. We do it differently than even my first friend there who showed us how he does it. We do it a lot different. For example, a lot of folks will kill their deer, gut their deer out in the field, which we do that too, and then they'll come home, hang their deer up, and they'll let it hang for, I don't know, however long they want, 3-4 days, something like that, and then they skin it and then they butcher it if they're butchering themselves. Well, we did that for the first couple, and then I realized, man, this is way easier to skin if the deer is warm. And so I'm like, well, how can I skin it while it's warm and leave it hanging? Well, you can. I've heard some guys doing that, but I don't think that's super common. If you do that, maybe you can tell me why in the comments, because some guys, I've heard, especially older folks, have done that. Maybe they make it taste different, I don't know. But I said, I don't want to leave it hanging where it's cold, especially if it's freezing. Deer freezes out there. Dude, getting the skin off of that thing is a job. And there are different methods now, golf ball method, and you can get hooks to pull it off with your vehicle. And I've even seen where they take an air compressor with these long needles, and they shove them up under the skin and they hit that deer with an air compressor, and it kind of blows the skin away from the meat, which is cool. That's great if it works, but we do it the old-fashioned way, grab hold of it and pull it off of there. And then we started doing that, and you take your deer and you quarter it, cut the legs off and stuff. I've got another video about quartering your deer. And we put it in the fridge. We got an extra fridge in my barn out there that we keep our quartered deer in, and I can butcher it at our leisure. So if I quarter a deer one day, I can wait a couple days, or a week even. I don't like to wait longer than a week, because it's fresh, but it is meat. The more blood loss you have, the quicker it'll spoil. But we quarter it, and then when we can make time, we get it out and we butcher it. So do it your way. That's my point. Do it whatever way works best for you, and get good at that, and then you can do your deer a lot faster. Okay, so we got backstrap here. This is kind of what everybody wants on the deer. Runs right along the spine on either side. Cut these big, thick, solid chunks of red meat off. A lot of folks make steaks out of them. We don't do steaks. So we did steaks for a while and then realized we just don't eat a lot of deer steak. So they would stay in the freezer until we absolutely had to eat them. What we found though is this makes the best jerky, in our opinion, if you don't make ground jerky, which is also good. So I'm going to show you how to make this backstrap into thinly sliced jerky that we put in the dehydrator. Okay, I wanted to show you guys what we're looking at up close here. So this is the backstrap. Like I said, you got some fat and stuff on this one. Now, I know I told you on the legs and grind meat we don't trim them very well, and that's absolutely true. We trim these up really well, these backstraps. We trim all of the silver skin off, so you're left with nothing but that deep red meat, mostly because we will be seasoning this with liquid smoke. Is what we use for the most part. We put it in the dehydrator and let it get down to a thin, crispy, somewhat chewy jerky. But you'll want to get that all off of there if you can, and that will make it taste a lot better. Okay guys, I know my head's kind of cut off in this one, but I wanted to kind of show you what we're doing with this one. I am going to trim it up pretty good. Like I said, I'm a lefty, so let me spin this around. I like to get my knife tip underneath of that silver skin and just kind of cut up a little bit, piecing it off. Some guys do this differently. You can do it from the top. I pull that skin kind of long ways and just kind of guide the knife in through there, cutting off as much as I can. I have turned it over before and done it like a fish fillet. If any of you guys fillet your own fish, you just kind of flip the whole thing over and use the knife to saw. I'll just show you. Let me get through here. I'm just kind of cutting a strip of this off. Nothing major. Oh, I got a little thicker down toward the end. Here's a nice big fatty piece. And then use that knife tip. This one doesn't have a great tip, but if you've got a knife with a really good tip, even a fillet knife itself works well for this part because you need to make as thin a cuts as you can. You're just trying to cut the, some of that sinew off of there and not meat if you can help it. See, I'm getting a little too much meat there. See, that's nice. That's what you want, just the sinew stuff, not the meat necessarily. But for the fillet cut, like I said, I've done that one before. Fold that over and then get a piece kind of trimmed off here with the tip. See, the tip of that knife really does well if you can get it under there. And then you just kind of use the weight of the weight of the meat itself to just run down through here a little bit. And it will eventually cut all that off. I'm not going to do the whole thing like that because I'm not great at filleting. So I'm just going to I'm actually letting the knife, if you see what I'm doing, I'm letting the knife kind of rest against that skin and just trying to get underneath of it as best I can. If I cut too much off, I adjust. And you can actually, like I'm cutting on it right now, it's a little tougher. So unless you really put some, I'm not putting any weight like against it. I'm really just letting the knife do the cutting of this thing. So learning how you do it and how it works best for you is very important. And the only way to do that is to try it. So I encourage you guys to get in there and try to butcher your own deer. Even if it takes you a while. Used to take me and brother-in-law of mine, which has butchered many deer with me, especially before the kids got enough to really help out and stuff. Used to take us about 4 hours to do a deer, the two of us. Like I said, that's back when we did a lot of trimming, a lot of intricate type trimming and stuff like that, which I just don't do much of that anymore, except on the back straps here. You can see, and I'll leave, I don't need to get every little piece like this. It's gonna be dehydrated. If you ever ate a bag of beef jerky or something, you've probably seen or even bit into a piece of fat, or something from time to time, and that's okay. That's not gonna kill you. So, some of you guys are probably watching thinking I'm even doing too much. Some of you may be thinking, oh, I'm not doing enough. It's really all about preference. Excuse me. And what you tastes like, what you like it to feel like texture-wise, and how much work you want to put into it. I like to put in, the least amount of work that I have to. So when I found out it tastes basically the same, or at least the chunk stuff tastes basically the same without too much work, I was like, yeah, that's probably what we're gonna do then. So, but we do still trim up the straps pretty well. My son did the other few straps that we had in the video earlier. You see that. He's gotten pretty good at it over time here. So, all right, let me get this little guy off of here. The majority of this is done. Just going to, oh, come on. I hope you guys can really see some of that. I hope I'm not blocking you too much, but right off of there. This is some of the thicker chunk fat. Getting it off of there. That's okay. Okay. So, to cut this into jerky, length is obviously however long you want them. I'm gonna cut, like 3-inch pieces or so. Something like that, doesn't have to be perfect. Then you gotta thin them out. So this, I don't know if you guys use a dehydrator often, but you gotta, the thicker they are, the longer they'll take to dehydrate. So I take my knife and simply I cut them this way. Now, this is safe as long as you do it safely. You can kind of just let this knife lay flat. Okay, you can see I'm just holding it like this to lay. I'm not holding it like this. I'm not holding it trying to bend my wrist. I'm letting it lay flat, and I'm just cutting straight across the middle. I'm cutting this in half, basically. Okay, now I've opened it up. A little thicker on that side, that's okay. So, and I'm gonna do it again at least one more time. This one I'll probably do 2 more times. This one I'll cut in half again, so start your knife, somewhere in the middle. Just let it go all the way across there. Okay. This one's good, but I don't like the width of it, so I'm just gonna cut it long ways, and maybe there's my piece of jerky. Okay, that's about the size I'd like most of them to be, or something close to that. This one you can see is a little thicker. Hopefully you can see that on the end. I'm actually gonna try and get one more decent little cut across there to thin that out, and that's much better. So, again, too wide, so it's one long cut. It's a bigger piece there, so that's okay. Looks like I left a little bit too much. I'm gonna cut just kind of that whole corner off there. Okay. Turn it over on the flat side, make it easier to hold. And you use your hand on top here to you can feel that knife as it goes through there. Obviously, if you start feeling a little too much, you'll want to point it down. But you can rock it. See, I'm rocking this knife to be at the angle I want it to be at. Ultimately, you want it to be straight. Just make a straight cut. But it's not hard. Oops, almost lost a piece there. But it's not hard to get a little too thick or a little too thin. And guys, I've said it many times during this video. As you can probably tell about me, I'm not super picky about how we do this. If there's one thing I'm sure of, it's that no matter how you cut this thing, it'll eat. So, looks like I went way too shallow there. I'm just gonna kind of cut a top layer off of this one. I'm dragging some. There, so you just kind of cut a top layer off of there. And then we're left with a nice thin piece here, okay? Alright, give me just a second. I'm gonna get some of this sliced up and I'll show you what we're left with. Hey, real quick, sorry, I know I said we don't do steaks, and we don't. I just do want to let you know, if you are a person who wants steaks and stuff out of the backstrap, that's fine. It's cut the same way. Obviously, you just trim it up, cut it to your desired thickness and then length. This could be a steak. You could cut it in half. That'd be a steak. I had a friend who will cut it this way and make like medallions, pieces. Those are cool. You could even like cut it most of the way through and kind of butterfly it, that deal. Whatever you want, but they're done the same way as well. So here's what we ended up with. 2 pounds of backstrap gonna be made into jerky. We'll add liquid smoke to that and let it marinate, dehydrate it. 12 pounds of chunk meat for the grinder from the hind quarter. This is 1 hind quarter off of the doe that we shot. So this will all go in the freezer or get dehydrated immediately, and it'll be great. So ultimately, I wanted to encourage you guys that you can do this. As a family, it's a great thing to do. Teach your kids if you got them. If not, do it yourself, because it's great to learn in times of need or just when you want to. But you don't have to pay a butcher. You don't have to take it in. You don't have to wait. You can do this yourself. Ultimately, there is a right and a wrong way, but if it gets cut into pieces and gets in the fryer, you're doing it right.